I'm Paige. I'm an alcoholic. My sobriety date is July 20th, 2016. I have a sponsor who has a sponsor. I have a home group. It's Midtown Group in Wilmington, North Carolina. I am a part of the All Northwest Young People in AA Steering Committee. I just recently moved to North Carolina from Spokane, Washington, so that is why that happened. But I'm still involved in the steering committee. It's a really awesome conference, really excited about it. It's going to be the first week of June. If anybody can come out to Eagle Cliff Campground it's at the base of Mount St. Helens in Cougar, Washington, and it's going to be a really, really rad time. So really excited about that and for that opportunity to be of service. And I'm really grateful to have the opportunity to speak on Zoom tonight for a little bit. It's really funny because I didn't know I was doing this until yesterday. And today's my belly button birthday. So everything in me was like, I don't know if I really want to speak. Like, it's my birthday. I have things to do. And it's so funny because I went to a local meeting here right before this, and they needed a female speaker to step up and share their story on a panel to kick off the month for their literature meeting. So I got to share my story for a little bit right before this, and I get to do it again now. And I think that's just a perfect demonstration of what AA does for me today when I keep saying yes and showing up. And it's just a really cool thing. So a little bit about me. I grew up in an alcoholic household, so I always idolized the idea of drinking before I ever even took my first drink, and that's a huge part of my story. I was always obsessed with the idea of having alcohol, of being a part of the party lifestyle, and that took over my life really early on. By the time I had my first drink, I was off to the races and I was ready to go. I always felt like I didn't fit in as a kid. I always felt like I was different on the inside and I couldn't fit in anywhere that I was, and just all those feelings of not feeling okay and comfortable in myself. And by the time I started drinking, I finally felt at peace with who I was and felt like I could fit in anywhere. And I was really good at chameleoning and like being able to fit into different social circles wherever I was and manipulate my way through social settings. And that's a huge part of my story and what my drinking career looked like. It was just bouncing from friend groups, from relationships, bouncing and just being able to find people who drank like I did to be able to have those needs met because I wanted to drink the way I wanted to. It's so funny because by the time I got here, my first sponsor asked me if I ever tried to only drink one drink to see if I could stop drinking and if I ever tried to stop drinking on my own. And I was like, whoever just has one drink, like that's not my experience. By the time I started drinking, I was drinking until oblivion. I was a blackout drinker. I started blacking out by the time I was 16, and the progression of my illness was just really fast for me. And I got myself into some pretty serious consequences pretty quickly because of that. And I'm super grateful that I found the rooms of Alcoholics Anonymous at 21 years old because it gave me an opportunity to learn how to grow up. And I always say that I grew up in AA because I didn't know anything about responsibility when I got here. I had no clue how to be comfortable with myself. And there's just so many things that AA has given me an opportunity to learn, and I just had no sense of who I was. I was really desperate when I got here. I have a lot of not yets in my story. My bottom was essentially me trying to control my drinking, and I did all these precautions the last night I was drinking of I'm only going to bring $20 to the bar. I'm not going to bring my credit card. I'm having my friend take my keys. I'm only pre-gaming before we go to the bar with a bottle of wine. I'm not drinking liquor tonight. I'm not doing drugs tonight. I'm going to be on my best behavior. And it was my friend's 21st birthday. And I was like, I'm not going to ruin your birthday. It's going to be a good night, I promise. And I had all these ideas in place of how I thought I could control and enjoy my drinking at the same time. And the last thing I remember from that night was being in this bar, not the bar where I started at, being at a completely different setting, surrounded by a bunch of strangers taking shots and talking about going and getting drugs at this random stranger's house. And the next thing I knew, I woke up from a blackout in a jail cell, and I had no idea how I'd gotten there. And I did all these things to have a good night and to not black out and to actually like have a fun night drinking, and that just wasn't the case for me. And that's what essentially my drinking looked like, was just me ending up in really awful situations and terrible places and having no idea how I got there or what I was doing. Um, so I wanted to talk about that a little bit just to qualify myself and for y'all to get a little bit of an idea of what it was like before I got here. But I think the really cool thing for me about AA was that I knew about Alcoholics Anonymous before I got here. My dad found his own sobriety when I was 15 years old. So I was introduced to the idea of AA a lot before I got here, and I experimented with AA a few times before I was desperate enough to find my own bottom and really come here for myself. So the first time I got here, I kind of understood how the steps worked a little bit and understood the community of AA as a whole and the AA culture. So I knew if I went to a meeting and a woman came up to me after the meeting and asked me to go get coffee or asked me to get lunch, then she would be my sponsor. And that's kind of what I anticipated. So I had a higher power before I got here. So I was kind of like, okay, God, like if I'm meant to be an Alcoholics Anonymous, then some lady's going to come up to me after this first meeting and she's going to be my sponsor. And then I'm going to stay. And sure enough, there was a woman who came into the first meeting I went to, and she showed up like 10 minutes before the meeting was about to end. She didn't even see me cry and share my story and just say all like hear my share of everything that I was saying of all the tragedies that had happened. But she knew I was new. I got sober in a small town. And so she immediately grabbed me after the meeting and she's like, I'm taking you out to lunch and we're going to read the book together. And I was like, okay, I guess this is what I'm doing now. And I'm so grateful that I got pulled into AA from somebody who had really quality sobriety and who walked me through the steps and had the time and the willingness to work with me on these steps constantly. I met with my sponsor every single day for months. And I had a lot of questions and I didn't understand anything when I got here. And it was just a whole lot of me not having any clue how to live my life. And this lady teaching me what it's like to show up and be a part of a community. And I think that's what I really wanted to emphasize tonight because it was so important for me to get plugged in really early on. So with that first sponsor I had, she told me what my home group was going to be. She gave me a service commitment of making coffee before my home group. She told me I was going to fellowship after my home group and go have lunch with these ladies every single Saturday. And I was like, why would I do that? This makes no sense. Like, I'll go to these meetings, but I don't want to hang out with y'all. I have nothing in common with you. I was hanging around a bunch of ladies that were 50 plus years old and I was 21. And I was like, I don't have anything in common with y'all. I don't want to be your friend. I'll come here. I want what you have. I want to be sober, but like, I don't understand how I can be friends with you. And I'm so grateful for that experience and for her encouraging me to do that and taking those suggestions of really getting plugged in early on, because it set up my foundation to understand how important it is for me today to be able to be a part of AA and a part of this community. I fought it for a really long time, and I thought if I'm only talking to my sponsor and working my steps and I'm doing my program of recovery and that's all that's asked of me. And for me today, that's not what sobriety looks like. Sobriety is so much bigger than me and working my steps. It includes every single person I come in contact with, and it includes all the relationships I've had to repair through multiple amends that I've had to do throughout my sobriety. And I have to give back what I've been given. And I think it's really cool when we talk about service, because I've moved a few times in sobriety and I just recently made a move. And if I didn't get plugged in immediately each time that I moved to get a new sponsor, to get a new home group, to introduce myself, to put myself in positions where I feel uncomfortable, I wouldn't still be here today, 110%. The first move I made in sobriety, I just moved across the state to find a young people's meeting. And I was gravitated towards the idea of young people, and I really craved that fellowship. And I had been to a conference, and I wanted to live somewhere where YPAA existed. And the first time I went to a young people's meeting, I just cried tears of gratitude, and I was like, oh my God, this is it. Like, I've been waiting to actually have friends in sobriety, and this is what this is supposed to feel like. And I can see myself hanging out with y'all, and there is more relatability within YPAA that I can truly understand and get. And throughout the years of my sobriety, there's been a few more moves because life things have happened, and my higher power has put me in so many different situations. And I think for me, like, The biggest move that I made was moving to the West Coast. When I originally moved to Spokane, Washington, I took a cross country road trip by myself. I had gotten into grad school out there after previously being kicked out of grad school in North Carolina. And that was the first time I wanted to drink in a long time. And I had done my steps at this point, and I thought the obsession to drink had been removed, and I was working a pretty solid program. But by the time that I was sitting at a restaurant by myself, sitting at the bar with a bunch of liquor bottles in front of me, and no, in a town where I knew nobody, I was like, oh my gosh, I could get away with this. I could actually drink right now and nobody would have to know, right? And I had 4 years sober at this point, and I share that because that's like such a pivotal part of my story of why it's so important for me to have community, and to have reasons to continue to show up today, right? And so after I had that experience, I immediately went to a meeting. I was in Sioux Falls, Iowa, and I found an AA meeting immediately, went to an AA meeting directly from that bar, and I was surrounded by women who had no clue who I was. And they were like, do you need a place to stay tonight? We have a couch you can sleep on. You can stay here or there. And like they gave me all these choices and were just willing to surround me with all this love. And that's what I get in A that I had no clue existed when I first got here. And it's just so crazy how much love there is in this program. And if you're new and you haven't experienced the unconditional love of Alcoholics Anonymous and having relationships with the people in Alcoholics Anonymous and seeing them show up for you, I really hope you stick around to see what that experience can look like, because that's what saved my butt in this program 100 times over and over and over again. And for me, that's why I love to do service and love to be a part of this, because there's just so much for me, and being able to give back what's so freely been given to me. And I've been sponsoring a lot of women lately and having that opportunity with this move. And it's just so neat to be able to see all the promises and blessings of this program start to come true for me. Going a little backwards, when I was new, there were a lot of things, as far as the lifestyle of how I was living my life, that were not conducive to the principles of this program. And I share that because I thought that once I got to Alcoholics Anonymous, if I just wasn't drinking, then everything was going to be solid and I was going to be a great person. As long as I could stop drinking, all my problems were going to go away and I was going to be great. It turns out when I just stopped drinking, I still have all my behaviors of my alcoholism, and I'm still in self will run riot, and I'm the major issue of all of my problems, and I'm always the root cause of everything that's going wrong in my life. And it took me 3 years of women loving me and not knowing how to love them back for me to realize how important it was for me to genuinely take accountability for those actions, for me to genuinely learn how to let my higher power take control of what's happening in my life, and to let that self will take a back seat, to my life today. And it's just really incredible what happens when I let go of that death grip on what I think sobriety is supposed to look like and where I think I'm supposed to be in life, and just let life do what life does. And I found that once I get out of myself and have the opportunity to be of service and let my higher power just kind of lead my life now, incredible things have unfolded for me every single time. And I'm just so grateful to be in a spot in my recovery where I get to show up and I get to say yes, and I get to have a community surrounding me wherever I go. I always know there's going to be a meeting anywhere that I'm at. And I know in those meetings, there's always going to be people willing to reach their hand out and help me out however they can, because that's the commonality that we all have no matter where we're at. We get to do that for each other. And that's just something I've been really heavily experiencing lately. So I wanted to make sure I touched on that, because it's just such a cool part, for me, about learning how to accept that community and to be a part of this and doing service to be able to keep it. I have a reason to continue to show up today and to continue to say yes and give back what's been given to me. And I'm just really grateful for that, and for the opportunity to be in this room, with y'all over Zoom, sharing a little bit about my story and why I'm here. And I really hope that each and every one of y'all can have the opportunity just to continue to stay and be a part of something that's so much more bigger than you, and much more bigger than just working your steps with your sponsor and just showing up to meetings when you can. It's a lot. My recovery has been a lot more than that, and it's shown me a much better way of life that encompasses all the aspects of everything I get to experience today. And it's just so encompassing to everything that happens in my life now. And I think with the more time I get, the more I'm realizing how AA has saved not just my life, but like I'm living on borrowed time, and I get to live in that gratitude on a consistent basis today when I'm in connection with my higher power. And it's just such a rad thing to be a part of. And I'm really grateful to be here today. And so I just wanted to present that topic of community and service, and why we do service, and why that's important to get plugged in and stay in the middle and just to be a part of this, and just jumping in with both feet. And with that, I'll shut up and let y'all say something. And I hope everybody got something out of that. That's all I got.